Almost live from the CX Therapy Studio, CX Therapy Season 4.
And good morning, Max. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Julien, it's so good to see you. How is Julien? How is Paris? How is the City of Light?
You know what? I'm just excited to be in 2025. There are only so many opportunities ahead of us. So many things can happen. Everything is possible.
That's true.
So
we are a quarter of the way through the century already. That's a little scary. That hadn't dawned on me.
I didn't think of it this way, but I guess you're right. Yeah, that's a bit scary when you put it. For me, it gets scary when I start looking at movies and thinking, oh, that's not that old, and that's 1999, and that's from another century entirely. And I'm getting, I already have white hair, but you're not making it any better. Who's your comment?
I've gotten to the point where my definition of new music is a decade old. So
I like that. I like that for me.
Teenager.
Talking about getting old and memories and all of that, do you remember who our last guest was?
I do. It was Daryl. And I have, I believe, a little something about him.
I have something from that discussion we had, and that's Joe Ake, because we've been laughing so hard with the guy. But if you do have a question, I think it's time for us to call the mailbag.
Now it's time to open this week's mailbag.
All right, let's see what I have down here. I'm getting the mailbag.
What do you have?
We got a letter. I feel like Blue's Clues. I don't know if that ever made it to France, but you can look that up if it didn't. All right. So, this is interesting. So Daryl had such a horrible experience with digital, particularly email, but also chat. And we also had Christina, who had that nightmarish email. That's the exact
ticketing. Ticketing is worse than just email. It's ticketing.
Yeah. So the question is very broad, and I do know the answer, and I know how you're going to answer it, but I think it's a really interesting question that was asked. Does digital work?
Oh gosh, how can you ask that question? I mean, yes, digital does work. We are recording. You're in San Francisco, I'm in Paris, and from here I can hear our dear friend Paolo Fabrizio in Italy yelling, yes, digital does work. How can you ask that question? No, it does work. And not only it works, but it's also what people want. I mean, you can battle as much as you want, saying it's phone first, phone is the most important, human interaction is face-to-face is the most important. Sure, it is, but new generations were born with a smartphone in their hands. And you and I, we may be complaining about being 1 quarter into the new century and watching movies that are fairly new, even though they are 30 years old. But the truth is, our kids were born with a smartphone in their hand. They were born with WhatsApp. They grew up with TikTok. They even feel like Facebook is for elderlies already. So you can't, as a company, believe that digital does not work. Now, is it perfect? Hell no. Is it always working? Absolutely not. Are the processes in place correct? They're probably not most of the time. But it's not about the technology. It's about how you use it.
That was going to be my point. It's the application design for the self-service part. It's the processes, who you get access to, what the permissions are. There are places that do digital infinitely better than they do voice, and vice versa. So,
and you were taking the example of Christina, who was a few months ago now. It feels like it was yesterday, but I'm pretty sure that was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it was last century, I believe.
Something like that. But Christina's story was terrible. But it was not about the fact that emails were bad. It was about the fact that the processes were broken. The people were trained to close the ticket as soon as it came in. Wrong processes, wrong training, wrong strategy, wrong focus, not wrong technology. Even though there's probably something better than emails nowadays, but you still need to have emails because you still have people using it. So, does that answer the question?
I think that closes it off. I think that nails it. I personally loathe email as a support channel, but it's not because of email itself. It's the processes around it and the fact that the SLAs are usually a day, which to me is just ridiculous to get an answer within a day, because the answer is going to be, hey, I have 3 clarifying questions. And then
you're complaining about SLAs of 24 hours, but frankly, if most of the emails could be answers within 24 hours, that would already not be that bad. Most of the time in France, I get 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
That's not okay. That's not okay.
And here we're talking B2C. I realize something. On the CX therapy, we very often talk about B2C because, I mean, that's your experience, my experience. So most of it will be B2C, right? But since we were talking about emails is an incredibly important channel, not just for B2C, but it's probably a major one for B2B as well, which happen to be need for customer experience too. So today we won't focus exclusively on B2B, but I want to touch a little bit on that topic.
Oh, are we trotting into new territory?
It's about time, right? It's 5th year. Actually, I didn't even say that, Max. 5th year of CX therapy.
My goodness.
Right? We're not getting any younger here. So here I get some stats for you. Stat number 1. And all the stats I'm bringing in today are coming from GitNux market data. 17% of B2B companies rate their customer experience as very effective, which I find very surprising, not because I don't think it's true, but because I find it surprising that so few companies are being honest about the quality of their customer experience. And as a comparison point, 81% of American customers reported that businesses are meeting or exceeding their expectations in customer service. That's American Express. So it's kind of a difference between B2B and B2C here. How do you feel about that?
So the 17, that is companies saying the service they provide. That's not companies as customers.
Exactly.
I am shocked by these numbers because what I see consistently is brands think their service is wonderful and consumers not so much. Now I realize, and so that shows at least
not even companies.
Yeah. I mean, at least companies that do B2B are a little more aware of the reality of the service they're providing, because most people, 17% of, I don't know where you got this 81% said that businesses are meeting or exceeding their expectations in customer service. That's not what I see on any kind of regular basis.
That's Amex. So it might be a narrow view of it. But let me bring you the second stat I've got for you today. 62% of B2B customers stopped buying after a bad customer experience. And just, again, to do the parallel with B2C, 79% of consumers report that they may not purchase again from a brand after a poor experience. So would it mean, is it just, a small error and it's actually kind of the same thing? Or are you really seeing that you have like 15% gap between B2B and B2C? Are we more sticky as B2B because it's longer lead time to find a new supplier, or how do you feel about that?
That was what I was thinking is, a B2B relationship is a much deeper relationship. So it's more to untangle yourself out of than it would be with B2C. So yeah, that number's kind of in line with what I would have expected. That makes a lot more sense to me.
So let me bring the last piece, which truly blew my mind. I was saying as a starting point, I was saying, you really need emails because B2B relationships are all about emails. But here is what I found out. 80% of B2B buyers expect real-time interactions. And why it surprises me is it doesn't mean that email is not right, but it's either people need to respond to email incredibly fast, as you were alluding to earlier, or there might be other channels. Could be phone, it could be WhatsApp, it could be other channels, but they expect real-time interaction. Did you expect that? Do you see that in your professional life?
If you were to swap out hope for from expect, I would totally say that's what I see. But expect that's a high bar. Maybe that's why only 17% of companies think they're giving good services. They're actually looking at that kind of a requirement and just aren't able to meet it. That number is crazy high and outside of realistic expectations, but I think it's a valid thing to want.
Okay, so with that, what I'd like to do today is to invite something on our therapy couch, someone on our therapy couch, someone who's been working obviously in customer experience, looking at B2C and B2B as well, and someone who happens, as every human being, to be a customer as well, and who probably has a scaring story to share with us. If you don't mind, I think now is guest time.
And now, please welcome this week's guest, a true CX expert.
Welcome, Ricardo.
Hi, thank you for having me here. Happy to be here. What I can say.
How are you doing? We don't really see your background too well. Can you just tell us where you are?
Oh, I'm in Munich, Bavaria. Not in Germany, in Bavaria.
Okay. I flew there. I flew through there twice recently, so I don't feel like I was there, but I saw from the window.
You can see here.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a very nice city, and I advise you to visit. I'm sorry, but I'm checking my pump here. It's pumping me.
So, Ricardo,
I am AI. Probably I am your first AI visitor here. Guest, actually. This is an AI map of my sugar right now.
Oh, wow.
That's
I'm a modern guy. And I have a AI tool here that is my sensor telling me connect with the pump.
All right, so we
will. Bionic. Is that what you're saying? You're half man, you're bionic. You're half man, half machine.
Yeah, I did not want to say that because people are not prepared yet. Maybe in the future.
Well, there's going to be a gentle interrogation with Max. We're hoping that your insulin level is not going to rise just because of that. But Max, Ricardo is all yours.
That sounds good. Tell me about ECXO. This is your organization that you founded and kind of built. Tell me about it. What is it and what it does?
So ECXO was created. We created that because, as Julien started today speaking about, Europe is not the strongest place. No place is perfect in customer experience, and there is nothing perfect in the world. But Europe, I could say, I think France and Germany, they are really not so good. And they have some characteristics of the people that helps to not be so good, right? And we are trying to close the gap, but we have a long way to go. We are preparing right now and launch next year our certification program that probably we are trying to get some help from the European Commission. And that's the plan. So we are working only on that right now because we all work around. And it's not just my ECXO. Many people work there and help me there. We have many ambassadors and people in the management team helping us. So I'm just the guy that had the idea, but many people are helping us.
So it's talk about the certification program a little bit. What?
I cannot talk yet because I'm not ready, but what I can tell you is that it's not going to be like your company that have a very standard kind of certification, which nobody will beat for Esther ever because the terminology is so good. Right. I simply love the terminology that they use, but I do think that they still, like the American Association, is a very narrow view of what CX is. CX is not a static thing, but it's something growing and evolving all the time. And we, based on that, we are creating a certification program that will be totally different than others. Maybe we are going to fail big, maybe not. We will see. But we are preparing something very nice.
And who's the target?
Practical.
Who's the target to receive the training?
Yeah, so it's the same target that Forrester have, just we don't have the customers that you can yet. But that's the same target. We are looking for the experts in CX, the practitioners, and also the executives and leaders around the globe. That's the idea. We call European, but it's not European because it's going to be global. That was a mistake. Calling European because that's narrow the idea, but that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's it's interesting. CX in I used to work for vendors in contact center, and I am very guilty of conflating customer service and CX, which is just absolutely wrong. But when you're a contact center vendor, it's in your best interest to do that. Now that I'm at Forrester, it's a much broader. Yeah, it's interesting at Forrester. It's very specific. A lot of it around kind of the CX function within a company and supporting them. But yeah, I mean, I always say CX goes all the way to the thread count in the sheets in a hotel room in terms of just the breadth of it. So when you're not doing ECXO, what keeps you busy from a career standpoint?
So I keep waiting for you always here. I was waiting since I spoke last time with Julien. No, I work with different companies. Okay, I'm a strategic consultant for like to B2B companies, but that's not that I wanted in that way. It's simply what happens to my career. So 9 years ago, I started work with Samsung. So we supported all the transformation that they have in the mobile division, wireless division, later on the telecommunications, and later on I was brought to the strategic group, which is 6 groups or 8 groups, depending where you are reading. All right, so they have a holding that is the top company, and from there we work and help different acquisitions to how they are going to structure themselves, or if you need to change them in terms of what Samsung wants them to be, or maybe Samsung say, no, I don't do nothing because they are very successful, I don't want to touch that. So this goes from culture, transformation, and measurements, a lot of measurements all the time. So I'm famous to not be a fan of NPS, for example, and we are trying to dash that out, but it's not easy, as you probably know, because everybody thinks that this is the thing for transactional things. I don't.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. All right,
so just to complete my question, my answer. So I work with Samsung for 9 years now. I worked with Volkswagen, with SAP, with Software AG, with Amdocs, and some other small companies, but all B2B in certain way. Always focused in B2B. Just during COVID, the people changed it a bit for B2C because everybody needed that.
There, perfect.
So I suggest, since now we know a little bit more about what you believe in and where you're coming from, I'd love to hear your story.
Gather around, folks. It's time for Guest CX Story.
All right. So Ricardo, I know you have a story, and I know that story is actually the base of everything that built your careers a few years back. So if you don't mind sharing that story with us, and then we can discuss it afterwards.
Sure. 2004 or 5, I don't remember. I'm getting older. In 2005, I arrived in the US in a place called Cherry Hill, close to Philadelphia, to be in the map. And as a diabetic, I need the suppliers for my pump, which is this plastics here that connects to the pumps injecting insulin to my body. But I was so good in customer experience that I don't know that you have to call a call center. So I checked the number of the company, and I found Medtronic. So you're leaving me alone here. I'll feel very insecure. I'm joking. So what happens? I called the headquarters. I never thought about CX at all, but I was working B2B all my life. Okay, I was in that time was project manager for Amdocs in the US, and I was seeing the experiences and the suffering of certain customers that it was squeezing them in certain way. And I thought this cannot be like that. But I never had the moment of lights that I said, oh, we have to change this. I never thought about that. But then I called Medtronic. Somebody called, I don't know, the secretary, whoever answered there below. I don't know. I don't have a clue with who I spoke. Maybe the girl that makes the connections. I explained my problem in 2 minutes, and she said, 1 second, sir, I'm going to pass you to the responsible. He passed me to the secretary of a senior vice president. Unfortunately, I did not ask her name. That's a big mistake because I never thought in my life that I would think about that in the future. And this woman said, how can I help you, sir? I understood that you have a problem. So I started to explain to her, and here are the points, that I did not, my suppliers was fading away and I needed more suppliers. The problem is that I could not order the suppliers without a health insurance card. I did not get my Aetna yet, which is an insurance in the US. And a diabetic that have those things, they have to have a spare because they get really nervous if the thing's finished. You are done, yes, it's your life here. So you must get insulin. So I was telling her that during 20 minutes, explaining I need that, I don't have this, I don't have card. And then after 15 minutes of speaking, because in that time the people did not use it so much, social media was not there. I remember that LinkedIn was starting, if I'm not wrong. And even people was not always very comfortable with emails, just to give an idea the level. But he said, no problem, sir. I'm going to contact our rep in your region, and she's going to call you in 48 hours. And in the end of the phone, I'm not telling you all the problems because this is a long, long history. Okay, but I have many problems that I needed suppliers, and I was really anxious about this. And without that, you cannot leave. So she said, can I help you? Before we hang up, she said, can I help in something else also? Because I see you very anxious about your suppliers. And then I said, yeah. Then I like a complainer, a good German complains all the time. So I become a real good German. I complain all the time. So I said, yes, no doctor wants to accept me as a client because everybody says that they have a line. They have a field that there are hundreds, thousands of people waiting to become their clients. No problem. We are going to help you on that. So this was very early in the morning, 8:30. I don't remember exactly the time, but I assume something like that because I was before my work. And then I took the car, went to my work. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, okay, another terrible experience that she promised me that tomorrow I have to call again, and that's the expectations that you have in that time. Early in the next morning, the agent called me. Here starts the experience, okay? So instead of me repeating, as you do that 100 million times in the US and also here in Europe is even worse, I did not repeat a word. And as the woman was telling me, I was understanding in the other side, out of satisfaction, that the other woman listened to me all the time and she wrote also. So it was very accurate what I told her, the first woman, for the second one. And I was, wow, this is amazing. So she said in the end of the call, she said, it was kind of 10 minutes. Listen, I'm going to send you right now your suppliers for you are going to get in the end of the day by Federal Express, something like that.
Oh wow!
And I wait a second. And then she said, and then I said, wait a second. She said like that, and then I I have this feeling of gratitude, because if you help me, I'm going to help you back. And that's to normal people. I said, oh, let me give you my credit card. But let's remember one thing. We did not have digital payments in that time. So did not existed in her reality. So she said, no, you don't need to pay nothing. I understand the seriousness of your situation. I'm going to send supplies for a month. And in that time, this was $200, especially without the insurance. And she sent me that. And I got in the end of the day. In the end of the call, she said, by the way, tomorrow, I'm going to call you. This is unbelievable. I'm going to call you. This is 2005, okay? We did not speak yet about personalization, hyper-personalization, nothing with data. Doesn't exist yet. And she said, I'm going to find the doctors, and tomorrow or the day after, I'm going to call you back. And then I drove back to my work. This was early morning. I was really happy and thinking, wow, this is amazing. They are going to send me my suppliers without me paying. And I have a total different impression about US because I have to organize my home there. And I knew the customer services in the US was really faulty all the time. And I was thinking, well, if this would be the way that we serve in professional services, yes, that should be great. But and then start my imagination to run. Next morning, the woman called me again. I know that is unbelievable, but that's really what happens. And now you're not going to believe me anyway. He said, I have 3 doctors for you. And then I told her, oh, amazing. And then, I'm sorry about the peeps. And then what she said, I have 3 doctors. She told me the names. I said, please, I remember I'm saying that, can you send me by email? That would be difficult for me to write here. Oh, I prefer to tell you the numbers and the names because she was not comfortable with email in 2004. What I can say.
Oh, wow.
This is kind of funny, but that's what she told me. And then she said, I have 3 doctors. She told me the first, second, and the third. And then she said the following thing. And this is not about religion, it's not about nothing, but I was struck by that because this is understanding the customer hyper-personalization based in data. That was my name in that time. So she said the following thing, by the way, this doctor is Jewish. I said, no, I don't care about his Jewish moving Catholic. I don't care. I just want a great doctor. And then I driving to my work thinking about this later on. And she really found me a doctor, and I was the 2.5 years that I was there, was with the same doctor. It was a great doctor, really. I was thinking about this hyper-personalization, but I did not define it as hyper-personalization. In 2004 or 5, I don't remember the year, Don Peppers comes with the first article with Marta. You know Don Peppers, correct? Is a big name in customer experience. It comes with the first article about personalization and hyper-personalization. And then a few years later, I found this article and I said, wow, that was hyper-personalization. So then I could define what happens to me. In the next weekend, okay, I went to, my wife was in Germany and I was in the US, so you can imagine that it's not the nicest situation in the world. I went to the Barnes & Nobles. All my weekend was expended in the gym and Barnes & Nobles because my wife was not with me. So I was looking for books that would explain about this, what I experienced in this situation with Medtronic. And then I found a book that was a very simple book and a simple history that was The Taxi Driver from Shep Hyting. It's the best, if you see him talking, it's amazing history, and it really happens to him in Dallas, actually. And then I said, well, we have to bring this experience that we have in the taxi, we have to bring to CX, to B2B. And then all my career, after the US, I returned to Germany, I became a senior director in ECXO. And then we started to do certain things to implement this experience that I kind of feel it there in CX, to talk with the people and explaining that the way we was doing was maybe very transactional things, and we're becoming friends because we have a common interest with the people, and is your partner, so you want him to sell more. all those interests that you all have, yes, we could do better than that. So then we started to discuss about this in the company, and then started really my career with CX, okay, and then developing for different fields, but that's the history.
Two things strike me here. First, super positive story. We don't have so many positive stories on the CX therapy couch, so it's refreshing to have something positive. Thank you for that. But the other thing that strikes me is this is a 20 years old story that happens to tick all the right boxes. You managed to talk to the right person. They made promises that they kept. They fixed your initial problem without even charging you for it. They called back afterwards to fix a secondary problem that was not really their responsibility to start with anyway. And they managed to do all of that. And if you look at this, transferring the call to the right person, nowadays, we have technology doing this for years. Nowadays, we use AI for this. But the truth is, with or without technology, if you really want to do it, the proof is 20 years ago, that company could do it for you and do it right. It's not a matter of technology.
Yeah.
Being able to make promises, everyone can make promises, but following up on the promises, making it happen,
True.
You don't have to be in 2025 to do it. It's a commitment, and that could happen 20 years ago. Being able to call back on the next day. Oh, and I forgot, calling back on the next day and not asking you to repeat the same stuff over and over again.
That was amazing. That was so good.
Now we rely on CRMs and automatic data capture and all of that. But the truth is, you could already do it 20 years ago. So technology is fantastic and it can do great things. But even without technology, it should not be an excuse for not providing exceptional customer.
We have the concept of the wall of fame, or I'm not sure exactly when there's an experience this good. And I think this clearly belongs there. But what I'm hearing, there's nothing scalable about this. You can't everybody can't talk to the secretary of the senior vice president. And so I assume what your job has been, or your mission, probably a better word, has been since then, is how do I make it so you can do this sort of experience at scale? Because that I think is the big challenge. Is this from what I'm hearing, this was very much a one-off.
Yes and no. I'll explain it. In the medical device industry, they are actually Medtronic is the company that invented the pacemaker. Unfortunately, it's a negative thing, yes, because it's perceived as negative. But Medtronic is the father of pacemakers, is the father of many technologies that you have today. And this kind of industry, the medical device industry simply, and I wrote an article about that many months ago, they cannot fail. It's not like any other company. It's not a typical, the culture is obviously is very strong. I can tell you that when they fail with me, you can go to my site and you read, I send you the experiences when they failed me. That happens one time. I did not care. I dropped it right away, a message for the chief of the diabetes research and the chief of customer officer, and they answer me. Can you imagine who they don't know who I am? I'm an insignificant client. They have millions of like me, like diabetes and other disease, but they answer me. Can you believe on that? And wow. And the reason they do those things is because they understand responsibility, not just about customer experience and delivering, because they are keeping us alive. That's the truth. They cannot fail. If they fail, I die. Yes. The algorithm that they have here is a very have many limitations. Yes, because you cannot be managed by an algorithm. Yes, your life is worth more than algorithm. But there are so many alarms. They designed that so well. The design of the software is so good. You understand? They did everything that they could to provide great experiences to products. They have many divisions. And the important part here is the following. The culture of the company is right. And 15 years ago, when I started to think about writing about them, that was the first version of my book that never came life. I'm not I did not execute it like Julien did yet. Yes.
I have 15 unfinished books before having one finished one, so no hard feeling.
That's great. Give me a great hope. So the culture of this company is really amazing. Okay, they are the only company that I know in the world that is like China. They have 100 years plan to replace all parts that are possible in the body. They are very good.
Wow.
And they understand the responsibility. They created the pacemaker in the beginning, but now they have a new version of a pacemaker. Is your hand pumping your heart? Just to give you an idea for very old people. And this was created by the founder because he had a problem. So he could take his mobile phone, put here and see what's going on here. You know, the technology is so advanced today, so in the future, maybe they will replace all our parts when you have problems. Hopefully, nobody will need that. But that's the situation. It's a very different kind of company of high technology, what I work with. Yes, that is high technology all the time, or any other kind of sector. Medical device, all the competitors, Abbott, Tandem, all those guys, if they fail, you die. So they will never fail. They do the right things. They give you a great support. They customer experience.
So the question would be, how do you make companies that don't hold your life in their hands provide the same quality of service? Because most companies we deal with, it's not life or death kind of experience if things go wrong. So how do you translate that great experience to other companies that have less?
It's very simple. First, you have to talk to the CEO. The CEO is the key for the culture. Yes. So the culture is to serve. It's all about serving people. Yes, and to understand people have their limits. People have their moods, and people have problems with your software, especially in the software and technology world. We have many problems that you cannot solve in the time. But the basic thing that you also said, Julien, and everybody says the same, but that's the truth. You don't need to solve problems immediately as in the B2C world, but you need to show that you are solving the problem and keeping the customer abreast of your solution. And when you finish something, you communicate to the customer. It's the basic things of closing a loop. When you have problems, you solve it. I remember times. Another detail is also to listen to your teams, because teams are, sometimes you don't listen to them because you think that you know better as an executive. And sometimes they have the solution because in the end of the day, they are the guys working and doing the hard things for you. And I can illustrate that in a time that I was working in a huge project. I think maybe you know this project. Do you remember when Nextel and Sprint joined forces in US? So I was working Nextel in that time. Nextel is a big telecommunications like Vodafone, like O2, like Orange in US. So we have a big problem to solve a billing system that was super complex, and it was 2 weeks with this problem we could not solve. A guy saw a running batch working in the background of our back offices. This is 2000 plus minus. And he said, I think we need to close this. And I said, no, why you are going to close this? You have to run all the time, Papa. Well, in the end of the day, if I would listen to him, I was an early manager, okay? I'm an early project manager. I didn't know a clue about what I know today. So I thought that I knew more than him and was really not smart. If I would hear to this guy, I would solve the problem much earlier, but I didn't. That's the problem. So, you have to listen to the people for interactive customers. They are listening, and I think
create an environment where they feel like raising their hands and coming.
Right. Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, and this is the approach also for innovation. And innovation you just create if the people feel secure in your organization, and that's a big challenge today with the situation that you are living.
Unfortunately, I see the time is running insanely fast here. We already at time. Max, do you have any closing thoughts? I know you didn't have much of a chance to jump in. Anything you'd like to add?
You kind of hit it, but what struck me, the lesson here to me, is how do you get companies to treat every customer experience like it's life or death? That just, the way that focuses the mind, the way that can happen. When it ain't, and I don't know how you do that, but I really appreciate Ricardo kind of having that mindset of it changes everything when it's that important.
Yes, and also the people that you hire are the key things, because this is what's going to make or break your company. So this is extremely important. I'm not innovating here telling you that. You all know that. But that's really what I believe. I believe that the people that you bring on board are the key for your future or for your failure. That's fact.
Well, Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all your insights. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing a positive story. That's a change,
Yes.
an inspiring one. Max, big thank you as usual. And thank you everyone for watching this new episode of the CX Therapy. We're super excited to start 2025 with you guys and looking forward to our next guest next month on the CX Therapy Couch. Thank you everyone and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much for having me here. Have a lovely day as well.